Here's a fact that would have sounded absurd 2 years ago. Right now, in 2026, the most capable AI models you can freely download and run yourself mostly come from China. Not from Silicon Valley. From Beijing, Hangzhou, and Shenzhen. Three names sit at the center of this. ERNIE from Baidu, Qwen from Alibaba, and DeepSeek. In the next few minutes, we'll put all three head-to-head on power, on price, and on the one thing that changed everything, whether you can download the weights. Then we'll zoom out to the whole ecosystem and a strategy behind it. Let's start with the scale of the shift, because it's genuinely hard to believe. In late 2024, Chinese open-weight models were about 1% of global model usage. Within a year, that number climbed to roughly 30%. On Hugging Face, the world's biggest model hub, China now accounts for around 41% of all downloads. And Alibaba's Qwen family quietly passed Meta's Llama to become the most downloaded open model lineage on Earth. This isn't a story about one clever model. It's a story about an entire country deciding to give its AI away and winning the adoption war by doing it. Chapter 1. How we actually got here, because this all turned on a single release. In January 2025, a relatively unknown lab called DeepSeek open-sourced a reasoning model named R1. It matched the best American systems on hard math and coding, and it did so reportedly at a fraction of the training cost. Then they gave it away for free, weights and all, under a permissive license. That one move reset expectations. If a small Chinese lab could reach the frontier and simply hand it to the world, the whole idea that frontier AI had to be an expensive, locked-down API suddenly looked fragile. Every model we're about to compare lives in the world are one created. So here are the three heavyweights at a glance. DeepSeek, the pure open-source price destroyer, licensed under MIT. Qwen, Alibaba's sprawling open-weight ecosystem. And ERNIE, Baidu's closed, hosted-only frontier giant. Two of the three let you download and run the model on your own hardware. One is not. That single difference, open weights versus a closed API, shapes almost everything else, so keep it in mind as we go through each one. Chapter 2. DeepSeek, the model that made everyone cut their prices. DeepSeek's fourth generation, V4, arrived as a preview in April 2026 in two flavors. V4 Pro is the flagship. 1.6 trillion total parameters, 49 billion active, with a 1 million token context window. V4 Flash is the lightweight sibling, tuned for speed and volume. Both run in thinking and non-thinking modes. And, this is the crucial part, both ship with downloadable weights under the MIT license. No user caps, no gatekeeper. You can pull the weights and run them on your own machines today. Now the numbers that made people gasp. On SWE Bench Verified, a brutal real-world coding benchmark, V4 Pro scores 80.6%. That is within 0.2 of a point of Claude Opus 4.6, one of the best closed models money can buy. And DeepSeek delivers it at roughly 1/7 of the output price. V4 Flash goes further on cost, 14 cents per million input tokens. For a huge share of real work, that combination, near-frontier quality, open weights, and almost throwaway pricing, is simply unbeatable. As for the long-rumored R2 reasoning model, as of mid-2026, it still hasn't shipped. The specs you see floating around are leaks, not fact. Chapter 3. Qwen, Alibaba's quiet takeover of the ecosystem. If DeepSeek won on price, Qwen won on sheer reach. Alibaba's Qwen family has crossed over 1 billion cumulative downloads, overtaking Llama. But the number that really tells the story is this. Qwen derivatives now make up nearly half of all new models on Hugging Face. More than 113,000 of them, more than Google and Meta combined. When a developer anywhere in the world fine-tunes their own model, the odds are they're building on top of Qwen. That's not a model anymore. That's a platform. And the models themselves are strong. Qwen 3.627b, a dense open-weight model, scores 77.2 on SWE Bench and matches Claude 4.5 Opus on Terminal Bench, using a clever hybrid attention design. Alibaba also previewed Qwen 3.8 Max, a 2.4 trillion parameter multimodal model, and notably, they're releasing it as open-weight too. While US labs mostly keep their biggest models locked away, Alibaba keeps shipping frontier-scale weights into the open. That is a deliberate strategy, not an accident. Chapter 4. ERNIE. And here Baidu plays a very different game. Baidu's ERNIE 5.0 launched in January 2026 with 2.4 trillion parameters and native full-modal design, text, images, audio, and video, in and out. On the LM Arena leaderboard, it ranked 8th in the world and first among all Chinese models. Then in May, ERNIE 5.1 landed at number 4 globally on the search arena, behind only 2 Claude Opus variants and GPT 5.5. Remarkably, Baidu says 5.1 hit that level using only about 6% of the pre-training cost of comparable models, a huge efficiency claim. But here's the catch, and it's the big one. Unlike DeepSeek and Qwen, ERNIE 5 is closed. Hosted only. You cannot download the weights. You reach it through Baidu's cloud, through an API priced at 59 cents per million input tokens. Baidu is the outlier of the three. It's betting on scale, on a 200 million user assistant, and on closed API margins, the same business model as the big American labs. So among China giants, Baidu is the one playing the American game, while DeepSeek and Alibaba play the open one. Chapter 5. So let's put them directly head-to-head. Here's the honest scorecard. On top-end coding, DeepSeek V4 Pro leads at 80.6 on SWE bench, with Qwen close behind and ERNIE competitive on general and multimodal tasks. On price, DeepSeek is the destroyer. Output tokens at pennies. Qwen sits in the affordable middle with the biggest tooling ecosystem. ERNIE is the priciest of the three and the only one you can't self-host. So the real decision isn't just which is smartest. It's, do you need to own and run the model yourself? If yes, ERNIE is out. It's a fight between DeepSeek and Qwen. If you just want a hosted frontier model, all three, and plenty of others, are on the table. Chapter 6. Because the big three are only the beginning. China's AI scene runs far deeper than three labs. Moonshot's Kimi K3 is a 2.8 trillion parameter open-weight model that pushed Chinese open models to the frontier in July 2026. Zhipu's GLM is the go-to for agentic tool-calling workflows. MiniMax specializes in long context and multimodal work, and went public on the Hong Kong exchange this year. And ByteDance Doubao is the most used AI app inside China, though it stays closed and quiet abroad. Different labs are winning different layers of the stack all at once. The pattern across all of them is telling. Most Chinese labs open their base and mid-tier models and keep only the very top closed. DeepSeek, fully MIT, is the outlier that opens everything. And because these open licenses, MIT and Apache, carry no user count caps, they're actually easier to build a commercial product on than Meta's Llama. That legal simplicity is a quiet but massive advantage, and Western startups have noticed. Chapter 7. So the real question, why give it all away? Because open weights are a weapon aimed at a business model. When a free, downloadable model matches a frontier closed one, it commoditizes exactly the layer that American labs profit from, the paid API. Reports suggest around 80% of U.S. AI startups now build on Chinese base models. A U.S. commission warned that this open distribution created a self-reinforcing advantage that chip export controls were never designed to counter. Every time a Western lab gates its best model behind a paywall, it nudges builders one more step toward the open weights that China already dominates. Chapter 8. And all of this is happening under a hardware blockade. U.S. export controls cut China off from NVIDIA's most advanced chips. Washington did approve H200 sales to China in early 2026, but with a 25% surcharge, and China's own ministry promptly told domestic firms to boycott them and buy homegrown silicon instead. Huawei is racing to fill the gap, aiming for around 600,000 to send 910C chips this year. Here's the paradox. Constrained on training compute, China leaned into efficiency and open distribution, and won the software and adoption layer anyway. The blockade shaped the strategy that's now beating it. So, practically, how do you choose? Need the cheapest near-frontier model, or want to self-host for privacy? DeepSeek V4, building a product on open weights or fine-tuning. Qwen for the ecosystem. Need rock-solid tool calling and agents? GPU's GLM, feeding it long documents or mixed media. MiniMax, just want a hosted, top-tier, multimodal model and don't care about weights? ERNIE 5.1 is a real option. For anyone running models locally, in Korea, or anywhere, the open Chinese models are the easiest, cheapest frontier you can put on your own hardware right now. So here's the takeaway. The story of Chinese AI in 2026 isn't really about any single model beating any single benchmark. It's that an entire ecosystem chose openness as a strategy and used it to capture a third of the world's model usage in barely a year. ERNIE, Qwen, and DeepSeek are the headline names, but the real shift is structural. Open weights didn't just catch up. They rewrote who gets to build on the frontier. And that genie does not go back in the bottle. Thanks for watching. If this was useful, subscribe, and I'll keep breaking down where AI is actually heading.